All right, welcome everybody to the Huddle, KGUN 9 streaming services, our sports talk show. I'm Jason Barr, joined by Pat Parris. Pat, good afternoon. Are you changing your name today the way Facebook did, or are you staying
Nope.
Pat Parris?
I thought about Meta, but they stole it. So no, I'm just going to keep Pat for now.
All right, we do this every Thursday at 3, and you can watch on YouTube, kgun9.com, all the KGUN streaming services. We've got a lot to talk about. We can talk a little bit about the Suns, Arizona Cardinals with a big game, of course, the Wildcats. Pat, I want to start just for a minute here on the Suns. I want to clarify something here. Deandre Ayton and the Suns off to a 1-3 start. A little bit of controversy over the owner, Robert Sarver, and admitting, or I'm sorry, he's denying things that quite haven't been even alleged yet. But here's what I want to clarify. Even though I don't think DeAndre Ayton is a max player type of contract, I would still give him the max contract. And here's why. The consequences of not doing so outweigh whatever benefits you might think you're going to get by not doing it. It's going to disrupt the chemistry. You might lose Ayton for 10 years if he leaves somewhere else. You've got reputational damage. You're going to come across as a cheap owner. I would still give Ayton the max contract, even if I don't think he's a max player.
Yeah, and I think that in a roundabout way, that was what I was trying to say last week, Jason, about DeAndre Ayton. It's sometimes you have to overpay for a guy to keep him on that team. That's what the max structure set up for. You don't want to lose that guy to have him go somewhere else and then come back and be a thorn in your side. And
For
I
a
do
whole
think
decade,
yeah,
that would happen.
exactly. And I really do think he's a player that's elevating his game and only going to get better. I talked about him being so young in age. He's so new to the game still. Don't forget he was a soccer player and until his mid-teens, and so he's just so young. And last night shows exactly what he can do. 21 points, 21 rebounds. What a fantastic game he had. Unfortunately, they come up short.
Yeah, second 2020 of his career. All right, Arizona Cardinals with a big game. Let me just, it's my computer wants me to restart it and all. I can't do it. I'll lose this, but let me make sure I can see any comments. If you want to join in, you can join in. Heather Tennant, thanks for joining in here. Okay, Arizona Cardinals, Pat, big game tonight against Green Bay. Look, it's silly to think when you're 7-0, any type of game is a must win. Of course it's not, okay? But when you look at the NFC and you see the Dallas Cowboys, easy schedule, bad division, a one-loss team. You take a look at the Bucs, one loss. They've got Brady. They look fantastic coming off a Super Bowl win. And you take a look at Green Bay, who they played tonight, only one loss, would then have a tiebreaker advantage if they were to beat the Cardinals today. It's an important game, 7-0 versus 6-1. I think the Cardinals will come out strong. I also think they want to show the national TV audience how good they've been all season long.
Yeah, that's a good point. I don't want to overstate this game because it is only week 8, but I don't want to understate this game either, Jason. This is a big game. This is a game where the Cardinals can, yes, show everybody on the national stage with a good performance and a win to go to 8, know that they are a legitimate team. But you're talking about, not a division game, but a conference game. And as you said, there's a tiebreaker aspect that the Packers were to beat the Cardinals and they finish with the same record at the end of the season. It's the Packers that get home field for that all-important NFC Championship game. And I don't think it's too early to talk about playoffs and potential hosting of an NFC Championship game when you're 7-0 and potentially going to 8-0. So I really do think that this is a game where you've got to put a lot of emphasis on it. They will. It's unfortunate that J.J. Watt is out. But I think this defense, to me, they get
number 1 in the NFL in points allowed.
That's exactly what I was going to point out is they are doing a terrific job. The bottom line is, who cares about, yardage? Who cares about all that kind of stuff? How are they doing on the scoreboard for you? And so far, they're doing exceptionally well. I think they're third in the NFL in turnovers with 8 takeaways right now. So, they're doing a lot of things right on both sides of the ball. Kyler Murray gets a lot of the attention, but the defense deserves their fair share as well.
All right, we'll get to Arizona football, but I want to save them for last because sometimes we just, it gets us so riled up. So let's talk Arizona women's basketball for a minute here. Exhibition game tonight against Eastern New Mexico. First chance for fans to see this Final Four team in a year and a half, coming off the Final Four appearance.
Hold on, Jason. Before we get going on them, Robert Martinez has a comment about the Cardinals, and I think it's worth it because, there are so many Cardinals fans. We don't want to neglect them down here in Southern Arizona. He says, are we able to keep this undefeated streak going until we reach the Super Bowl to win it? Who's likely to face us and try to stop the streak? I like to take it one game at a time, Jason. The old adage in sports. I think this is a team that has to be considered to be a Super Bowl team, but at this point, you just got to beat the Packers and move on from there and kind of make sure that you don't have these injuries start to build up. That we've already seen a couple of injuries slow them down a little bit.
Yeah, chances are, even if they beat Green Bay tonight, they'll slip up at some point during the year.
Yeah.
17 games is a lot of games to try to win this year. Extra year, it's still a tough division. It's not easy to go to Seattle. So I wouldn't look at it as, is there one particular team who they don't match up well? It's hard to have your A game against, every single week.
And you mentioned even in your division, you got Seattle, but don't forget the Rams are every bit as good a football team at times as the Cardinals have been so far. And they got to play them one more time too.
Aaron Cowman says, don't think it'll be the Packers. No Devontae Adams. No Lazard, no Devontae Scanling. Yeah, Aaron, your stuff, but they also have Aaron Rodgers. So
yeah,
you can't count Green Bay out. But that's a good point that you make.
Good teams, good organizations find ways even with injuries to compete.
Yeah, no JJ Watt. Everybody's got somebody who's out here.
Right.
But those are key losses. Okay, so now to the Arizona women's basketball team. First chance for fans. Dia Barnes says they've sold about 6,000 season tickets. This is an exhibition game, and a game, they'll blow this team out, Eastern New Mexico. It's just a chance to see them. And, Dia actually made a little bit of a comment I thought was a little controversial when she said she thought their team was going to be better. Now, listen, I know they're bigger. I know they're deeper. And I know you have to move on from Ari McDonald. She's not going to be here forever. But the thing about Ari McDonald was this. There was an intangible there that anytime that team needed a basket, okay, the other team was on a 6-0 run or an 8-0 run or even building to that, the opposing fans were starting to get riled up. Ari McDonald could sense it. She said, give me the ball. She went right to the hoop and scored. That intangible is going to be tough to replace, even if you can replace 21 points a game.
The flip side of that, and I do agree with you. I know what she was getting at. She's getting at we're deeper. The 9 players that are returning are going to be better. I mean, they're better in a lot of ways, but you can't say you're better without Aaron McDonald. I mean, you just can't. It doesn't make any sense. But I get what she's trying to say, and I think she's trying to give confidence to the team that they can play at a championship caliber level. They can vie for a Pac-12 championship. They can make the tournament, make another deep run with this roster. But you're going to have to find ways to pick up the slack. You're going to have to find ways to develop playing time and for certain players and get them to step up. I know you've got some thoughts about, you can't replace point for point Ari McDonald, but you can certainly find some minutes for people that help, maybe take this team in a little bit different direction. They're going to have to get it done, Jason, just a little bit differently without Ari McDonald.
Yeah, and they're trying to take the pressure off Shayna Pellington, but she has to play almost all the time like she did against Stanford in that championship game.
Yeah, she played great. Yeah.
All right, so now to Arizona football. Or we get Robert Martinez talks about Arizona. We can talk for a minute about the men's team. You saw the highlights on social media. We showed a few on our news. Yes, Ari McDonald was definitely the best player that, and maybe Robert means today, if you want to be politically correct, you have to say Arizona men's basketball. You can no longer say Arizona basketball. And it's not just from the rise of the women's team. It's just to be respectful too. So we're gonna do it that way. Arizona men's basketball, a little good in those highlights in the scrimmage. You know that Ben Matherin's going to be better this year. You know that Kirk Reese is going to be better this year. You know that Azuolas Tubelis is going to be better this year. That's what happens when you go from freshmen to sophomores.
Right.
A comment that Tommy Lloyd made that I think is kind of interesting was he talked about how much personality the team has. You see that. You saw that in Red Blue. You saw that in a little bit in the way they play, and they're having some fun, but they're going to be up tempo, but they're still going to play some defense, and we'll see. We'll make our adjustments as the season goes along to maybe what our expectation is. But right now, I'm just kind of at 21-11 and a bubble team.
Yeah, and I'll take that right now if you say that right now. But I have a sense that this team has the ability to be a little bit better than that. And if
Yeah,
that's the
make an
case,
upside surprise. Yes.
yes, and if that's the case, then they go to March and we see them playing in the NCAA tournament, and hopefully they do a little bit better. And we've seen them the last couple of times they've been there, but get there first. And I'm looking forward. They tip off on Monday night, exhibition game as well. But both the men and the women, they're not that far away, Jason. We're about 10 days away from the first real game, and then you get going, and we'll see how they do.
All right, now to the football team. Where to even begin? Here's what I'd say, Pat. This team doesn't know how to win, and they're not comfortable winning. And not only did I come to that conclusion on my own, but Jed Fisch reinforced it a couple times when he said the team's been talking to sports psychologists. I think he thinks it too, but he can't say that in the news conference because that Washington team was bad with a capital B. They were up 13-0 at halftime. They were up 16-7 in the fourth quarter. And when Will Plummer threw an interception on a screen pass, the second time this year a screen pass has been intercepted, you felt it. You felt it, Pat, in the stadium. We noticed it in the newsroom watching on TV. It was like, uh-oh. Some people said, here we go again. And on the flip side, Washington was thinking, that was the break we needed.
That's what we needed. Yep.
Big pass. The coach called that. That's what you do. You make the team pay with the
right.
bomb down the field, 2 touchdowns, and all of a sudden now the losing streak's at 19, going on 20 at USC this Saturday.
Yeah, exactly. And you say they don't know how to win. They're not comfortable with winning. I also say they know how to lose. And I think that's in their psyche too. No, I'm serious. And I think that's unfortunate, but they went, here we go again. When that happened as well, 51-yard pass, couple plays later, 3 and out, 51-yard pass, couple plays later, and you're behind. And I think they could see it coming too. And they could feel it coming. And it's frustrating. You'll say, okay, 2 51-yard passes. You can't negate those. But again, I'm going to give Don Brown's defense some credit.
Defense has been respectable.
They're number 55 now, Jason, in total defense. Remember, I was talking about earlier when we were doing the first couple of these huddles, I was talking about last year they were 121 in the nation in total defense. I'm sorry, last year they were 116. The year before that, 121. When we were last talking, they were in the 70s or 80s. They're up to 55 now. You say, well, what does that mean? Well, that means they're giving their offense a chance. If the offense doesn't turn the ball over, this could mean a victory coming soon. And I think if the defense continues to do what it's doing, the opportunity will be there again for the offense to do their job and get a win. They're going to steal one of these, Jason. I think you and I both have a feeling. The unfortunate thing is I think our best feeling was going into the Washington game, and they couldn't pull it off.
Defense has definitely been respectable. And don't forget they're doing that with an offense that's not always putting them in the best spot either. I do think Don Brown has done a good job in here. Trayvon Mason's a player. Mo Diallo's a player. Roland Wallace is a player.
He's good. Yeah.
They've got a couple guys who can ball.
Offensively, Jason, they went from tied for 129 to now number 127 in scoring at 14.3 points per game. That's out of 130 teams in the NCAA.
After scoring 16 points.
That moved them from 14 to 14.3.
That means somebody else didn't score.
Yeah, it's ugly. You've got to score more than 14 points a game if you want to win in the Pac-12. That's as simple as that. And at USC, I don't know. USC seems like they're ripe for the picking too, but not with this Arizona team. It's going to be rough. It's going to be a tough task to go in to LA and try to steal one there.
I'm looking at 0-8 and a 20th straight loss this Saturday at USC. So
Robert Martinez has a question about homecoming, because don't forget, after they go to USC this weekend, then they come home for Cal. And Robert Martinez says, what do we think about homecoming next Saturday against Cal? And again, first of all, it's a great tradition. It's a lot of fun.
Noon game.
Yeah, and it'll start on Sunday night, on Halloween, on Sunday evening when they do the lighting of the A on A Mountain. That's always great to see. And it's a terrific turnout usually for those games. Maybe they'll get a decent crowd against Cal. Again, Cal's a team that you'd normally would say this is a team that a decent Arizona football team would have a chance against. I'm just not so sure. We'll have to see.
it's as good a time as any to stop that streak and kind of get going in the right direction. And I think Jed Fisch has done a good job of not letting him. You remember when Mike Stoops was here and he was running up and down the sideline looking kind of crazy, and then not in Rich Rod's first few years, but kind of towards the end. At the end of the post game, the post game news conferences were a little wild, and he was a little wild on the sideline. I think Jed Fisch has done a good job of being composed and making it look like, hey, this is going to pass. The cliche of every storm runs out of rain. And I do think that the players can feed off that and the coaches can feed off of that instead of like, oh my God, why aren't we getting a win? But to me, he's trying different plays in the red zone. I don't fault his play calling. I think we disagree a little bit on that. I think his play calling has been fine. I think that the players will make you look good or bad in the play calling. Are there exceptions? Of course, the Seahawks in the Super Bowl, that was a terrible play call. Okay.
Yeah.
Obviously, if you're at your own, half-yard line, there's some things you don't want to do because you don't want to put the offensive line in a position for holding penalty and things like that. But for the most part, I'm not a big play calling guy. The team will make you look good or bad based on your play calling. What issues are you having with the play calling?
Well, I'll give you the one example, the glaring one last week. You're running the ball so effectively against Washington, it gets you in the position up 16-7 in the fourth quarter at the Washington 28, 1st and 10, and you try to throw a screen pass. And
what's wrong with that?
Well,
some of the screen passes and bubble throws are synthetic runs.
I don't try. Then throw it out in the flat. Don't try to throw this center.
But a screen pass should never be intercepted. If you're a coach calling that play, you should not be thinking a screen pass is a dangerous pass to get intercepted.
That's twice it's happened, and just keep running the ball, Jason. Just keep running the football. Not only that, screen passes sometimes are incomplete, right? And that stops the clock. No, if you run the football, you run it 3 times, kick a field goal, now all of a sudden it's 19-7, and you're feeling pretty good about yourself. But that's one of the issues. I don't have a major issue. I'm not saying they've lost all these games this year because the play calling was horrendous. There's some times when I've questioned the play calling. That's fair. That's what we do. Yeah. I just think that it's a learning process for Jed Fisch. It's a learning process as this staff kind of comes together and they get there, they find an identity. We're still looking for an identity. They've got to find an identity. I thought the identity was run the football, and then they didn't do it. We'd be remiss if we didn't mention the story that ESPN broke and we confirmed earlier today, Jason, about the Rich Rodriguez lawsuit filed against him and the university by the his former assistant in the office assistant was dropped without prejudice, and that doesn't mean anything more than the judge says she can't refile this lawsuit. That's all that means. There were some headlines today with prejudice and everybody, that must be serious. No, it just means they can't refile it. So it's over. So there's $7.5 million for an athletic department that's been, hemorrhaging money because of COVID that they don't have to worry about. So that's a relief. And now they can move on past the Rich Rodriguez era.
B-Rock Brock, who's a chance of the next level on this team? I assume he means the football team in the NFL. Top name that comes to mind is Trayvon Mason on the defensive line. I believe their scouts have been looking at him. But some of the other guys too, the ones I mentioned, Diallo and Roland Walls can play.
Somebody will give Stanley Berryhill a chance as a slot receiver or something too. I mean, when he gets to that time.
I tell you who else is intriguing. Lucas Havrasek can kick a field goal 70 yards.
Yeah, he's got a leg.
He just can't kick a field goal 30 yards.
What was the thing about the meter on your football video game, and you got to hit it right in the center, and sometimes he's way off. That just happens.
I think he's talk about being a mental thing. I think he's mentally better with these longer ones. He just boots it and somehow by the time the ball gets there, it finds its way in between the uprights.
I guess.
But when it's 30 or 35, I think the angle is a little sharper. And I think that's what maybe is the issue.
Yeah.
Green Bay Packers game is a Thursday night game. So that's right now with our time zone starts at what, 5:30?
Yeah, something like that. Or is it 5:20? I don't remember the exact time. Yeah. But yeah, it's coming up in the 5 o'clock hour. They'll kick off and it's 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 5:20. 5:20
Pat,
is
I've
kickoff.
lived here 9.5 years. You've
Yep.
been here longer.
Much of my life, yeah.
Do you prefer being 3 hours back in New York or 2 hours
I
back?
do prefer this 3-hour time. I really like being on the West Coast time, on California, Oregon, Washington time. That's
I'll
my
take
favorite.
I'll take it too. It's not a
Yeah.
6-month to 6-month deal. It's more like
No,
4
it's
4 or 5 months
yeah,
where
it's like 4 months now. And
no
there's some talk that they might get rid of it completely. And I think a lot of those leaders here in Arizona say, well, if everybody does away with daylight saving time, then we should we should go with California.
I'll leave the viewers with this, the listeners with this. Growing up in the New York time zone, I grew up in a suburb of New York City. You would always, be watching football on CBS with Pat Summerall and John Madden saying, 60 minutes is next, except on the West
West
Coast,
Coast.
right? Murder, She Wrote, the whole thing. And they would always say what time it was, East Coast time, Pacific time, and then Central time. They would never say, oh, it's
Yeah.
this time, Mountain time. And I always wondered why. And then I found out years later that the reason that they don't do it is because I might be off by 1% here, but only 7% of the country is in the Mountain time zone. You look at the major cities, it's Denver and it's Salt Lake, and I think that's just about it.
And Phoenix. Yeah, and Phoenix.
Phoenix now varies 2 to 3.
Right.
But it's really a smaller percentage of the country than the two coasts, and then you've got Chicago and Texas in the central time zone.
Yeah.
So I always thought that was interesting as a kid. But
it was, and those of us who lived here in the Mountain time zone felt offended, but that's the way it is.
Yeah.
But and also it probably played into it that Arizona was for 2/3 of the year is West Coast time, and for a third of the year it's Mountain time. So that could have factored in as well.
All right, Robert Martinez, thanks for the 5:20 kickoff.
5:20. Yep.
We'll take your word for it. I'll never get used to games starting at 4:30. When the Diamondbacks play on the East Coast and it's a 4 o'clock.
How about when they're playing these games in London and you wake up and they're already in the second quarter? And I wake up fairly early and they're already in the second quarter. So
Haversick could win a game for us the way Max Zendejas did. Yep, and he could lose a game the way Max.
He could lose it. He could lose it on an extra point, and then you start chasing the 2-pointer the rest of the way.
Well, that's why Fisch figured it out a few weeks into the season that Tyler Loop should do the shorter kicks.
Yeah,
and
he did.
Could do. Then you got both guys involved. Okay, Alex Steiniger, we polled our viewers on the Morning Blend whether the Arizona football failure is the fault of Coach Fisch or the players. It was 50-50. But actually, when I put that in, Alex, I didn't write in Coach Fisch or the players. I wrote in Coach Fisch or Coach Sumlin, because a lot of times people will blame the previous coach for A, the players he brought in, and B, the culture he came in. But if you want to do Coach Fisch or the players, you want to say 50-50. If I had to pick just one of those two, to me, it's more on the players. It's I don't think Nick Saban would be winning with this team. I'm sorry. So I'd be more interested.
I bet he would have beat NAU.
I doubt. Okay, Daddy would have figured out a way to win.
I'm never going to let that one go by. That game, that quarterback situation was a terrible call on Jedd Fisch and his staff. But I agree, Jason. This is a problem that has now plagued this team for several seasons, and that's a general decline in the players that they've been able to recruit. And that's not a knock on the players that are here now. They're trying their best. I don't see them quitting, Jason. I don't. And I think that's a testament to Jedd Fisch. But I do see the level of talent having gone down kind of steadily in the last few years. It leaves you with the team that doesn't have the same level of talent of the opponents you're facing, except for NAU.
I mean, that's where I'm at, so that's why, to me, this is a honeymoon year for Jedd Fisch. I've made the analogy before. Lou Holtz went winless his first year in South Carolina. I know that's Lou Holtz, but it's also Lou Holtz, and they blame the previous coach. This is a multi-year turnaround.
Right.
It's hard for us as fans in the moment right now when things seem so bad. But if they don't win next year and stink it up, then fine. I don't have the problem with the play calling. I have a problem with the wasted timeouts, the too many men on the field, and the false starts.
Penalties, Jason, the penalties.
Yeah. You know what? Hit somebody when they're inbounds.
Yeah.
You know, stop
Right.
hitting them when they're out of bounds. And don't put on social media that they can run 15 miles an hour on a treadmill. I don't care. Run 15 miles an hour on the field.
On the field.
You know, come on. I don't want to see
Yeah.
that on social media.
Yeah,
Run 15,
I agree.
50 miles an hour on the field when you're chasing somebody or getting
Right.
chased.
Or you're carrying the ball.
I don't care what
with
you do
your
on a
pads and
treadmill
helmet
on Tuesday.
Yeah.
It's not a track meet.
No.
All
I
right.
agree with that.
All right.
Hey, we had great
Hey, Robert
participation.
Martinez, B-Rock Brock, Alex Steiniger, Aaron
Yeah.
Cowman, and somebody else too who's chiming in. Let me find your name. Heather Tennant and Laz Duffy. This is our biggest showing. So thanks so much.
Yeah,
We appreciate
thank you very
talking
much.
sports with us, listening to
Yep.
sports with us. And Pat, thanks so much. We got to wrap this up here. Get
Yeah,
back to the
have
5
a good
o'clock
time.
news.
Have a good time down at McHale. You'll be
Yep.
down there at 5 and 6.
Yep. I'll see you on the news today at 5 and
Yep.
6. We got to get going here.
Looking forward to it.
Everybody, for Pat Parris, I'm Jason Barr. Thanks for watching The Huddle.